If you're a Nintendo fan, chances are you're also an AG Aonuma fan. As the director of Ocarina of Time, AG has shepherded the Zelda franchise from the Nintendo 64 all the way to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, either as a director, a producer, or supervisor. That includes the 3D remasters, Link's crossbow training, Hyrule Warriors, even Triforce Heroes. But believe it or not, AG's career is not just defined by The Legend of Zelda. Well, I guess it is. He's involved with over 25 of them. But it's not the only thing he's done. In fact, the first game he directed is one that never reached American shores. Now, the reason for this is largely due to the fact that the Nintendo 64 had already launched, and so Nintendo was phasing out the Super Nintendo. Which is a shame, because I think that the game we're talking about today would have had a lot of appeal to American gamers, especially kids who like adventure stories, pirates, and searching for lost treasure. Marvelous! Another Treasure Island is a top-down puzzle adventure full of that classic Nintendo charm that is full of fun ideas, with a couple of annoying exceptions, and makes for a gorgeous send-off for the Super Nintendo system. The game starts with a camp counselor asking 3 kids to get the firewood ready for a big fish dinner. These 3 kids, Dion, Jack, and Max, are your playable party, to be switched between at any time with the right shoulder button. If one of them gets separated, which will pretty much happen on every screen, you can blow a whistle to reform the group, and having the group all together will become important for many teamwork-oriented actions that involve lifting, pushing, or pulling heavy objects. Each character also has their own unique traits, as well as having their own inventories with various items, keys, and tools that might remind you of that Triforce franchise. Jack, for example, is tall and lanky and a construction freak, and he gets boots that allow him to leap across chasms, as well as a fishing rod that not only catches fish, but just about anything that isn't nailed down. Max is pudgy and gets soccer shoes to kick with, as well as heavy machinery to operate, and a little fairy friend that can fit into small gaps. Dion is short but quick, and can get into spaces the other 2 can't, and he also gets a hammer for striking pegs, and a catcher's mitt for walloping enemies with baseballs. There are, of course, more items and tools than just that, many of which are located inside of treasure chests that require colored keys given to the group by this talking monkey and bird duo. They act as a sort of hint system for the game, as the monkey will give you instructions on what to do on each island, while the bird can be summoned by the whistle to give you more specific tips in exchange for a luck rock. These luck rocks are scattered all over the islands, some in plain sight, some just out of reach without tools, and some as prizes for minigames or defeating enemies. Every time you pick one up, you get a dialogue box about how many you've collected, which can get kinda tedious if there are multiple to collect in a room. Needless dialogue boxes for currency, where have I seen that before? But you won't just be using them for hints, as they're sometimes required for progression. In order to take your newly acquired ship from island to island, you'll need to power your furnace with an ever-increasing amount of luck rocks, which would be great if it didn't feel at times like there just aren't enough to keep up. For example, at the second island, I needed to buy this pile of scrap in order for Max to build a machine with, and it cost 44 rocks, leaving me with just a few left over. Of course, you can also barter for a lower price, but I kinda wasn't paying attention, so let's pretend this is a worst-case scenario instead of me being an idiot. I then needed 20 rocks to leave the island when I was finished with the chapter, but I only had 2 rocks remaining, so that's a little alarming. I did find a pile of luck rocks behind a house, getting me to 17, but after scouring the rest of the map, I couldn't find any more. This meant the only way to get to 20 was to do this timing-based minigame about kicking a soccer ball between 2 defenders. Which, okay, fine, I can do that, but it costs a rock to enter. And if you hit the defenders, obviously you lose. Again, that's fine, but if you win the minigame, it spins a wheel to determine your prize, and one of the slots is 0. Really? You engineered a way to lose after winning? Another slot on the wheel is 1, so you have a decent chance of either not making any progress or losing some. This makes me want to kick someone's ass. Maybe my own for not haggling earlier, but it's stupid as hell. You've now seen this interface a few times, so let me explain it. Anytime you interact with something or someone, you'll have the option to use an inventory item, do a teamwork operation, or just examine other hotspots, kind of like you do in a point-and-click adventure game. I always think it's fun when these older consoles tried to do point-and-click adventure-style gaming, and the ways they had to work around not having a mouse while still being relatively easy to control. In this case, the icon will become a light bulb and the cursor will show a question mark, so there's not much in the way of pixel hunting here aside from from the occasional small little sign on a wall. Sometimes you'll even get a close-up, which is a fun way for Nintendo to show off their artistic prowess. But it can even have fun gameplay implications, like this close-up on a monkey that allows you to poke and prod it like the giant Mario head in Mario 64. It's not the smoothest interface ever, but for what the game is, I think they did a pretty good job with it. Whenever you want to switch items, you can hit start and then quickly move to another item. Obviously, I'd love to be able to do that outside of a menu, but it's still relatively snappy. The narrative of the game takes some wild shifts with each chapter, as you're trying to hunt down crystal balls to unlock a secret chamber leading to the grand treasure hiding underneath your summer camp. The first chapter has a bit of swashbuckling as you chase after bandits being led by a pirate named King Blue. The second chapter takes you to this dry gulch that was once a flourishing village, where you gain the ability to time travel back to the past in order to help save it. And the third chapter is literally Invasion of the Body Snatchers, as mutant plants begin absorbing humans and replicating them. It's pretty crazy how tonally different each section of the game feels, but no aspect feels out of place. Whether you're playing rock, paper, scissors with monkeys or fighting this giant mechanical clock monster, it all just kinda works. What doesn't quite work is the fan translation. It's nice that it exists and it's legible enough to understand, and that's the most important thing, aside from these numerical riddles. What were they thinking? But I'm not a fan of some of these weird working designs-esque insert jokes being given to NPCs. If it's there in the original, fine, but I don't know why some fan translators treat these projects like it's open mic night. So the puzzles are generally smart, and you'll figure them out after a little thinking, but I did mention enemies, and that's where the game starts to fall short for me. In various moments of the game, there will be enemies that can actually harm you, as the three characters each have a life bar. You don't carry any healing items on you, so you just have to wait until you can find some tomatoes in the world for a quick top-off. Unlike The Legend of Zelda, you don't have a sword, and have to rely on other, less exact forms of combat. Dion can throw baseballs from range, and that's the easiest way to handle enemies, but there will also be times where you'll need to use Max's boxing glove, or on a rare occasion, an item of Jack's, and these require a bit of precision that the game isn't necessarily calibrated for. You have to get pretty close for the gloves or saltwater spray to make contact, and the hitboxes are not very player-friendly. Luckily, combat doesn't happen super often in the game, but it can be especially annoying with bosses. Ultimately, it's like trying to put action combat in Day of the Tentacle. It's just not built for that, you know? The puzzles are ultimately what drive Marvelous, and they range from utilizing inventory items to some lateral thinking, like turning off the fans in the king's palace in order to sneak into his bedroom to look at his clothes while he showers. I made that sound a lot creepier than it actually is. You can also use that same power switch to electrocute this frog, and okay, you know what, I'm just moving on. These are some evil kids. I normally swap in songs from other video games during a review if the soundtrack runs thin, but there was absolutely no need to this time, as front to back the music is great, and not from one of the usual Nintendo composers, but instead Yuichi Ozaki, a longtime sound designer for the company going all the way back to the Satellaview. It's got a great mix of adventure, mystery, danger, as well as some funkier and jazzier tunes. There are several tracks that'll get lodged in your head and may never get out, like the music that plays whenever you finish a chapter. And how about those visuals? Yeah, it's the Link to the Past engine, but the engine is pushed to the limit here, utilizing the SA1 chip and high-res mode to offer some truly outstanding visuals, with no slowdown or tearing. There's no reuse of art, as each area's got its own cool, unique look to it, resembling something closer to Secret of Mana than Zelda. The close-ups allow for some awesome extra details, and the extra horsepower allows the game to remember where characters are if they get isolated, and to store a ton of items in their inventory. When I think about how often Nintendo likes to throw remakes out onto the market, I can't help but think about Marvelous. The story and themes would translate perfectly to Western audiences, and I'm sure that they'd be able to grok the game's unique interface and puzzles as well. I mean, discovering the dog corpse might be a little scary for a child, but that's what the E10 rating is for. Because you see the dog and you go, eeeeee. You can really see the fingerprints from AG Aonuma on this game, and how it would carry along to Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, and so many other highly influential games. Even Twilight Princess, you Xbox 360 ass-looking snooze fest. Okay, sorry, just had to prove my Zelda fandom cred there. Skyward Sword's really good. What was that? Did someone... must have been the wind. Waker. Realistically, we'll probably never see a remake or re-release of Marvelous, and that's a bit of a bummer for me because I really do think it's an awesome game that deserves to be seen and played by more people. It's thinky, it's twitchy, it's catchy, it's silly, and it's a treat to look at and play. I don't love every design decision, some of those minigames are ugh. But taking the good with the bad, I think it deserves to be in the top 10 to 15 of Super Nintendo titles. It's just too bad no one can play it, this game with pirates in it. Thanks for watching this video. I'm gonna take this Thursday off, but tune in next week for a video on Sony's first-person platformer Jumping Flash. You can also now catch a bonus video about even more Next Fest demos only on my Patreon, and I plan to do more of them as well. So definitely sign up if you're interested, and you can get in these credits with a $3 donation. If you don't have the money, that's fine, just hit the like and subscribe buttons and share my channel with your friends. Every little bit of engagement helps on this cursed website. Until next time, you'll find me in another castle.